Zeke Miller is here now in New York. He's a CBSN political contributor and White House reporter for the Associated Press. Good to see you as well.
Good to see you.
And Chip just mentioned that phrase there, Merry Christmas, and talked about the president and his thoughts. What role does this play for the White House?
Now, certainly, this is something that the president has been talking about since he was a candidate, since he was, candidate Donald Trump, and even before that, when he was just reality television Donald Trump. For him, he's always been playing in these culture wars, and this is a phrase. It's less to do about the war on Christmas or broader religion. For him, it's a buzzword. It's a symbol of his supporters' broader view of a war on political correctness.
And he's taking credit for it. Are you surprised?
Not at all. I mean, if you look at if this year has been any guide, he certainly takes credit for every incremental step in his direction this year. And just by saying Merry Christmas, he's erasing the history of the past, even though we can pull up all the clips and all the statements from previous presidents. He's a showman. He's put it on a show, and this is just the latest act.
Well, Zeke, we know the Congress isn't back until 2018, which is just a couple of days here from now. And the Republican agenda, of course, they've had an opportunity to advance some items. Let's talk about a number of things: the tax overhaul, the repeal of the Obamacare individual mandate, opening part of Alaska to oil drilling, and putting Neil Gorsuch on the Supreme Court. Any victory here? Is that something that the Republicans can sort of say we had a good year?
Yeah, I mean, certainly, if you look at, if Republicans were where they were a week ago today, we can say that we would have all been saying this year was a complete abject failure for a Republican president who has Republican control of the House and the Senate. Now that starts to look like they have some real significant accomplishments. Are they as broad or as do they fulfill all of the promises and ambitions that they laid out at the beginning of the year and when the president took the White House? No, absolutely not. They have not repealed Obamacare. They've taken a significant slash to it, repealing the individual mandate. They have not been able to do lots of other things like infrastructure, welfare reform, all of those ambitious goals they aim to get done in year one. They haven't been able to do that yet, but they've taken a significant step forward in implementing their agenda, and they deserve credit for good or ill, depending on which political side of the political aisle you're on. But they've done a lot more than most people thought they were capable of doing. 4 months ago, when healthcare reform failed, nobody thought they'd get this far.
Especially with all of the controversy happening this year. Let's go and talk about the agenda moving forward. Here's White House Legislative Affairs Director Mark Short on Sunday talking about protections for dreamers.
The president put forward to Congress when he said that the deferred action for childhood arrivals was not constitutional. He put forward to Congress the principles he wanted, which included border security, it included interior enforcement, and included a couple of additions to ending chain migration. Those were the things that we asked for. We put that forward to Congress months ago. We're waiting for Congress to provide to us a proposal to get it done. But you're right. The president very much wants a deal here. He wants to solve this problem.
One of the things you did not mention just now is the border wall.
Well, I did. In border security, we very much consider a physical barrier part of the border security.
Is that non-negotiable, a border funding for the border wall?
Absolutely something the president has promised, and it's not that it's non-negotiable. It's what America needs.
All right, Zeke, so what does Congress's agenda look like in 2018?
Well, obviously, the president set Congress up with essentially a crisis point for early next year around immigration when the DACA program expires for those who've received deferrals. So that took place 6 months from September. So that comes up February, March. So the president wants, as part of that, a broader immigration reform deal, things like eliminating what they call chain migration, going to a more of a merit-based immigration system, border security, and things like that. That creates that's sort of an urgent need that for both parties to address. And then there are things like infrastructure, welfare reform, entitlement reform, any of those sorts of Republican sort of priorities that have been in place for years. Can they get that done in a midterm? Probably not, but something in immigration is certainly possible. And certainly there's going to be a will on both sides to try to get something done at the beginning of the year.
And Zeke, I'm sure with your expertise, you could talk about this next subject here for hours, but if you could do it in 40 seconds, what challenges lie ahead now when you speak of the midterm elections for 2018, for the Republicans especially?
For the Republicans, they just gave the American people a tax cut. They don't know if they like it or not yet. And that's the biggest challenge for them. They're going to own it one way or the other. They did it on only their votes. Can they sell it, making the American people feel like they got a tax cut, that they benefited from what was just passed? If they can, they're going to have a fairly good year. It's going to be a difficult year for them, but it won't be that bad. If they can't, it could be a really challenging one.
All right, Zeke Miller, thanks a lot for joining us, and fly tie right there for the holidays.
Thank you.
Man.
Merry Christmas.
All right, you too.